Hello. Can you all come to the session, please? Thank you. So, welcome to all of you to the ECF Conservation Forum. I will say a few words in a few moments, but first of all, I would like to introduce my family, Ricky, which, apart from the fact that she is an excellent executive director for our association, she is totally mad and crazy about figures and numbers. So I'm sure that we will have a lot of information coming from her. So thank you, my family.
Lovely. Well, now I feel the pressure. I'm like, how many numbers did I put in my presentation? Will there be enough? But it is lovely to see so many of you here today. As Eric says, I'm Evanwy. I'm the Executive Director of EASA. And as always, it's delightful to welcome you to any one of our events, but especially our Conservation Forum, which is really a showcase for all the amazing activities you've all been involved in and our many members have been involved in to help achieve our vision and save species. I'm going to start actually with a little sort of sideline into where we were 2 years ago at the previous Conservation Forum in Zagreb. Because at that point in time, we just approved and agreed our new vision and embarked on our new strategy. And our vision, Progressive Zoos and Aquariums, Saving Species Together with You, puts conservation at the very core and heart of what we do. We recognise that we have expertise that's unique. We are really positioned very well to save species, to save a range of species. But we also recognise that that problem is a big problem, and we can't do it alone. And that's why we need to be progressive zoos and aquariums. We need to be constantly improving and going forwards, and we need to be doing it in partnership, in the with you bit. So this is our vision, and it's split into 5 focal areas that reflect the different areas of activity that we look to progress with our strategy. And my presentation today is going to talk through each of these 5 focal areas with a particular emphasis on how they lead into the conservation activities of EASA and our members. And before I take a start on that, I also cannot kind of dive into that area without mentioning the war in Ukraine. I'm so grateful for the amazing community that we have that has been amazingly supportive over the past few years since the war started. The screen in front of you just shows the donations from 2023, which are continuing into this year. And this has enabled us to help send food supplies, generators, medical supplies, and make direct funds available to the zoos in Ukraine. Primarily our 3 candidate for member institutions in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv and Kiev, but also other zoos and aquariums in need as well. I recognise that the war is ongoing, and we will encourage people to continue supporting the fund. There's lots of information on our website, and we do not forget our colleagues in Ukraine and look to support them wherever we can. I also wanted to talk a little bit about a reorganisation process that we've had in the Executive Office. And many of you will be aware that the Executive Office is the paid staff of EASA that assist all our amazing volunteers among the membership doing the work of EASA. And what we look to do with the Executive Office is use it to reflect our vision and the work that we want to do. And so we've now had a bit of a reorganisation of our different departments. And you'll see kind of a high-level overview organogram there on the screen. And here we have our kind of 3 main departments that reflect the lead on those areas of the vision. So many of you might be aware of April Adams. She might have come and screened your zoo or aquarium. She's heading up our member development department. And this department is leading on that progressive zoos and aquariums bit. We have an accreditation team in there that are doing the screenings to check that our members are meeting our standards. We have our EASA Academy, professional development and training. And we have Mirko, wonderfully looking after us with conferences and events and development in these sorts of areas as well. The Saving Species team is that one in the middle there with our Species Conservation Department, and you'll see this consists of what I like to call the animal people, all of those people that help support the programmes, the EEPs and the TAD chairs, etc. But also we have a new department in there in terms of our Field Conservation and Science Department. Again, looking to really grow and focus the work we're doing saving species, both ex situ and in situ. And then last but not least, the with you element is reflected in our advocacy. I love it when I'm stumbling over to the communications department. Our advocacy Advocacy and Communications Department, headed up by Thomas Rousseck here. And this department leads on our advocacy work, all the important legislative work, not just within the EU, but broader as well, to help make sure the species we care for are protected both in legislative situations as well as in others. Also in that team is our communications department and our funding team as well. Really making sure that all of our members know what we're doing, where we're going with EASA, but also communicating with the wider outside world as well. And of course, importantly, making sure we can find funds to do the work that we want to do. So I just want to take a little kind of step aside to talk about that update for you. I mentioned April's department and our member development department, and this is where we do get a little bit into the numbers. I wanted to give you some membership updates. Earlier this year, at the annual general meeting for EASA, we approved a couple of really major things for our member development department and our accreditation. And as many of you know, EASA has been on a 10-year accreditation cycle. It's our first accreditation cycle for existing members, making sure that they're all at the same level. But as of this year, and heading into next year, we're now moving to a 5-year cycle. I think we all know that the pace of change is accelerating. Things are moving faster and faster. And so much can change in 10 years in any zoo or aquarium that a 10-year cycle just isn't progressive enough. It's not reflecting where we're at and the standards that are changing all the time for us. So we'll be looking at checking our members every 5 years now. If you have any questions about that cycle, come and talk to me. I'm happy to answer them. Also alongside that, we updated our standards, and they were standards for accommodation and care, and now they're standards for welfare, accommodation and management of animals in zoos and aquariums. And this is to reflect that element of welfare that's in all of our work that we do, but maybe not quite as front and centre as we wanted it. This also encourages members to use the 5 domains model of welfare and to put welfare assessments into the work that they're doing. I know many of you here are thinking, well, welfare is great, but how does that link into conservation? But of course, if the animals and the individuals in our zoos and aquariums don't have good welfare, then they can't contribute to conservation outcomes. And if we're not aware of welfare, both in our zoos and in the field, then our conservation outcomes aren't going to be as successful as well. So it's really important that we can focus on welfare. And so also at that meeting in April, we approved new members coming into EASA and also improvements for that cycle. So I'm super pleased that we've hit the end of that first 10-year cycle, and this is where we're at. An amazing number of members in both the full temporary candidate for membership categories. We also very much appreciate our associate members, those zoo and aquarium associations in other countries that are part of EASA, universities and colleges, etc., that are part of our community as well. So a really strong and vibrant set of experts within our EASA community. I also mentioned the EASA Academy before, and I'd like to share with you our new Academy Manager, Carolina here, started in December last year, so still fresh and working with us for the Academy. In terms of the numbers of people that we've had through the Academy in the last year, in 2023, you'll see we've developed a range of different trainings to lots of different people all over the world in lots of different institutions. And historically, I think probably pre-COVID, a large portion of our Academy courses were in-person, face-to-face. And as we all know, COVID kind of changed the landscape quite a lot. And that also changed how we're developing and delivering EASA Academy courses and programs. One of our most successful courses last year was this one on reproductive management. It was a hybrid course where we had in-person, live, online, maybe that's the right term, sessions that you could turn up to, but also some pre-work and some recorded work after. And all of those live sessions were recorded, so they're still available for people to get in touch. And that element of having hybrid courses or online courses or self-paced courses is really what's expanding our EASA Academy portfolio with a range of different courses that are available, not just in the moment, but for you to pick up as and when you have opportunities. And so we have a range of these different courses going on, but still recognise the value of in-person work. So these are some courses that are going on this year, and these are the ones that we've got planned for next year. And if you're looking at all of these, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, that looks lovely, Navani. I like all those courses, but I don't really see conservation in there. And we did look to put on a conservation course prior to this forum, but unfortunately we didn't get enough interest to run it. And so actually I'd love to talk to some of you in the breaks and the lunch times about what kind of training you feel might be beneficial, what's going to be attractive to you, what can we put on as the Academy to support your needs. We definitely want to engage with you and want to offer training that's going to support you and fulfil those opportunities. So then moving into our different focal areas, I'm going to focus on this first one to start off with about kind of healthy populations of healthy individuals. And a lot of this focuses around our regional collection plans, or our RCPs, which actually, should have updated the slide, we did approve a change to move away from using the word collection plan to species plan, in terms of elements of communication, to move us away from being less of a, look at me, I've got one of every animal in my collection, to actually, I care for species, I want to save species, I have a species plan for my zoo aquarium, not a collection plan. So my bad for not updating the slides. Can I keep working? But the aim of our regional species plans are to look at the different taxon groups that we have and say, why are we keeping these individuals or these species in our zoos and aquariums? What are their roles and goals? Specifically about supporting, ideally, conservation outcomes. So each of these RCPs go through a process of identifying the species that we as EASA are recommending to keep. And we're very nearly, it's definitely an end of cycle thing, very nearly at the end of the first cycle of all of those programs. And what happens once we've had the RCPs is then we move into our EASA ex situ programs. So those RCPs identify the different species that we look to have an EASA ex situ program for. And part of this new structure is that these programs all have defined roles and goals, but those roles and goals can be different for different species, depending on what their opportunities are. And the RCP process involves not just people from the EASA membership, but we have experts from outside as well. So specialist groups come in, people that are active in NGOs in the field for that specific species. It's about getting all of those experts, both in the EASA community and outside, together to determine where we can make the best impact for the species in our care. And you'll see a wide range of species are being covered here. And this is where we're at. Our aim is to move everything that we have into EASA ex situ programs, away from the old style EEPs and ESBs. So it's a good process and we're very nearly there. Hopefully at the next forum in 2 years' time, there'll just be, we have this many EEPs, and that's it. Maybe this slide will disappear entirely. But the thing about when we have an EEP is it's an internal element. It tells the EASA members, this is a species we should look after, this is why. It helps us develop best practice guidelines. But that's no good if we're not also communicating that to the outside world as well. And this is where we have our EEP pages. These are constantly being added to on the public EASA member website. You'll see a range of species up there. And what this does is enable anybody out there to look at a species and say, well, why does the EASA keep that species? Why does this EEP that's in the EASA zoo have that species? What's it there for? And this is where I then have to attempt to say, I was like, okay, what does the Strava Zoo manage as an EP? Foicidae? Somebody here might tell me how I'm managing that. But if you click on the species there, it then takes you to a page that says who's managing this species from an EASA member, the red list status of this species, and as we can see, this is a really important one for conservation. They're extinct in the wild. How are we going to do that? And then if you scroll down the page, it gives you the different roles and goals, and these are different for each of the different species. For this one, it's fairly obvious. If it's extinct in the wild, we have a strong desire to look after the species as an ARC role, but also there's some opportunities there for research. And we have a range of these different roles, both direct and indirect, for conservation for the species, based on the IUCN ex situ guidelines. So this is a really great link into the species we keep, what their conservation roles are, how we're expecting those species to help us, lead us in our conservation work and make impacts for these species. Of course, we don't want to stop there. We want to promote it in a range of other ways. And I recognise I'm not the best on Instagram, but we have some amazing people in that communications department that are creating a range of different Instagram stories and little bite-sized pieces of knowledge that work in those social media platforms. So if you're not already on the EASA Instagram page and getting these beautiful updates about our EEPs and what their roles and goals are, then definitely join us, sign up, do that thing that helps you get into Instagram and learn more about why we keep the species we keep. We also recognise that when we're talking about conservation, it's not just the physical animal in our zoo aquarium, but it's also their genetics that we want to conserve as well. And I've got a sort of fairly text-heavy slide here, not too many numbers, Eric, but a lot of text about our EASA biobank. And I'm not going to say too much about this because Anya, our biobank coordinator, is going to give you all the details later on today, but also is around all week if you have questions about how the biobank works, how we use the data in the biobank to make decisions about species research and conservation activities that we want to get involved in, and of course encourage your vets to send samples to the biobank as well. We definitely want even more than the many thousands of samples that we have. Next on into our second focal area, and I won't go into this one in too much detail because I know Eric is going to say some words as well, but I couldn't miss this opportunity, as always, to highlight our amazing conservation database. And this is where hopefully many of you in the room are our conservation contact, and you're the one adding the data into the database to tell us what work you're doing in your zoo and aquarium in relation to conservation. And we use that information to promote your work in a variety of ways. Again, on those social medias, in our annual reports, in a range of other activities. But also we can collate that data to make beautiful, beautiful infographics. Some lovely data here about how much we spend on conservation as an EASA community, but also not just money, but man hours or woman hours, they hours as well. Because actually it's not just about money, it's about that expertise being shared as well. And you'll see here, all over the world, our members are active. We do have a good focus on Europe. We recognise that we want to look after the species in our own backyard as well. And the graph on your right there shows the database activities over a 5-year period. You'll see we had a little dip during those COVID years. Our focus when our zoos and aquariums were shut were on just keeping ourselves going, but we didn't stop entirely. Still really high amounts of money and time going into conservation. Even when many of our zoos were closed to visitors or struggling financially, we recognised and committed to supporting conservation. Those numbers are heading back up. And I know you're going to say, well, where's the 2023 data, Miranda? I need a more updated graph. Well, it's coming. Meryl here has been working on collecting all the data that's been added, and thank you to everybody that hit that deadline on adding the data. So keep your eye on our socials, on our communications, and you'll find out more about what our members did in 2023 any day now. One of the other areas where we focus on in our conservation work is our campaigns. And the last 2 years we've had what we call an internal campaign called ECF24. And this actually is in that advocacy and communication department area, looking at how can we, as a EASA community, support some of these global biodiversity targets. A lot of challenges are hitting us at a global level, and we have an opportunity to work with our local governments, our regional authorities, to help them meet some of these global targets. Alice here in the office, both in the EASA office and here in the room, has a workshop on that on Friday, I think. So there's loads of information toolkits there available on the main website, and Alice is here to talk to you if you want to know more about that campaign. And we also launched our next campaign, our Vietnamazing campaign, looking to, again, be a more externally focused campaign now, looking at Vietnam and the amazing diversity that we have there and how we can work together to support it. Again, I'm not going to say too much because we have some sessions on that later on this week, but I had to take this opportunity to highlight it to you. Another massively important thing that happened for zoos and aquariums and conservation last year was the release of this IUCN Species Survival Commission position statement on the role of botanic gardens, aquariums and zoos in conservation. This position statement has been a long time coming, decades even, where we've been working with IUCN to say, well, what is your position on zoos and aquariums, IUCN? What do you feel as the leading conservation organisation that zoos can do? And it's fantastic that we've got to a place where we have this public document agreed by a range of different stakeholders and the IUCN community about the different areas that we can work on together to support conservation. It's IUCN validating the work that we do, encouraging us to do more, of course, we're always going to want to do more, and encouraging us to work in partnership to get that done. So a fantastic statement, and definitely encourage you, if you've not seen it, read it, and you're not using it in your own communications to evidence and support the work you're doing, I would encourage you to do that. And And I sort of talked about utilising that statement in our communications, and that nicely leads us on to the third focal area about the work that we're doing in advocacy. Here are some of the key areas that we've been working on in the last few years. A lot of stuff to do with the Animal Health Law Handbook. Really important to make sure that our population management programmes can stay healthy as moving of those animals around, making sure that we're meeting the legislative conditions there. We're also looking to support consultations coming out of the EU on positive lists for pets, on day-old chicks, etc. So there's a whole range of work there. And a lot of that work has also involved aspects to do with CITES, zoos and aquariums as destinations or not for animals to go to, making sure that we can manage trade in a sustainable way and look to support the work reducing illegal trade, which is decimating a lot of wild populations. I mentioned also that Progressive Zoos and Aquariums Saving Species with You involves partnerships, and we have a whole range of memorandums of understanding formalising partnerships with all the amazing people that we need to work together with. You'll see a lot of IUCN specialist groups out there. We definitely look to combine our work with them in a formalised way, as well as informally in some of those RCP meetings. This partnership work takes time. It might mean things don't move as fast as we want, but we are stronger if we work together, even if it means we have to go a little slower. Moving on to this next focal area about our communications and sort of putting out the work that we do. I mentioned the documents earlier this year about accreditation and about the welfare, accommodation and management standards, but also a large document update was our population management manual. And there's a lot of discussion in there about acquisition and disposition. A lot of it linked to the work we want to do at CITES and the reputation we have at CITES, but also recognising if we want to save species, we have to absolutely have our own house in order. We can't be about saving species if we're also buying animals and we're not really sure about where those animals are coming from, or we're selling animals and we're not sure where that's coming from. And so that's where we have some really clear guidance here on acquisition and disposition, making sure that we're doing our due diligence, giving animals their unique value that's not a monetary value. So encouraging members not to buy and sell animals, to do due diligence on that acquisition and disposition being legal, ethical and sustainable. Those are our key words for us going forward. So definitely we'll be giving you updates about those changes in the population management manual. We also like to celebrate the great work of zoos and aquariums in our annual reports, and these are due out soon. I must admit, my report is sitting on my desk to finalise now. Not only does the TAG report talk about all the different taxon advisory groups we have and the conservation and the research work going on there, the annual report has a fantastic section about all the work the Conservation Committee has been doing. But also in the back of that annual report is a list of all the members that have added data to the conservation database and all of their projects. And I must admit, I think I've shared this before, like every year it comes in and then I get like the bill and it's like, the cost for printing this report has just gone up, the cost of editing this report has just gone up because you've added to those conservation database pages. And I think we were at 16 pages last year. Just sometimes make the text a bit smaller so I can manage my budget. But I will absolutely love if I have that same feeling of financial pain this year because you've added to the pages of the conservation database entries in our annual report. So please do congratulate yourself if you've added your data already. And it's like on your to-do list but you haven't quite got there yet, please do step it up and add your data. The other area we like to celebrate the work we do is through our Journal of Zoo and Aquarium Research, JZAR. And it's a quarterly journal that has a whole range of different articles showcasing the work that we do in conservation, but also in a wide range of other areas. I'm super delighted. It takes a long time to get this journal impact factor out, but we now do have an impact factor for our journal. And the people in the know tell me that 1.3 is pretty good. Always can be higher, we always want this to be a bit higher. But actually, for a fairly young journal that's self-funded through EASA, has a range of quite niche articles in it, it's a fantastic place to be. So I'm really pleased that we're able to get that impact factor there. And that's not the only thing we're looking to do to publish and promote the research that we're doing amongst the EASA members and other zoos. We're also working with VDZ, the German Zoo Association, to have this zoo science library available online. And what we're looking to do is populate this library with research not just from JSAR, but from other journals as well, that involve our members, that involves zoos and aquariums. And we're constantly adding to that data and encouraging people to share that information with us. So for example, if you were about to do some conservation or you want to think about where your conservation research is going and you're like, oh, okay, well, Mavandi mentioned something about these Phoecidae fish things. She might not have said it right, but there was something I saw on the screen. How much research has been done on them? Do they need more conservation research? What should we do? You can go to the Zoo Science Library and you can filter by species, by taxon, by date, era, and then they'll show you all the different articles that have been published that are in the database on that species, on that subject area, etc. So it's a fantastic resource to seeing what's out there in the world of conservation research, other opportunities for you to link with other people if you want to do something and they've already published in your area. So absolutely look that up. And I know I've thrown a lot of stuff at you, and if you want to keep up to date, contact us on our socials. There's a range on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram. And we also not only use those areas to update people about what's going on, but also to share your successes. We have a wonderful set of proud zoo people on our Instagram, which highlights the varied range of roles that people do in zoos and aquariums. Always looking for more diversity. So if you are doing some conservation work in your zoo and aquarium and you've not been featured yet on Proud Zoo People, Sandrine would love to hear from you and we can showcase who you are, why you work in zoos and aquariums and what you're doing for conservation. For EASA members, we also have our monthly e-news that gives more practical updates about where EASA is going, some of those document updates, etc. And if you're not signed up to e-news yet, then please do contact us and we'll be able to get you on that subscription list. And then last but not least, our fifth focal area about managing our operations to reduce our environmental footprint. Again, this is about walking that talk. And the Conservation Committee has been fantastic on leading on a range of guidelines about meat and soya guidelines on timber to help us kind of be more sustainable in the work we're doing and give some really good advice on how we can run our zoos and aquariums in a sustainable way. We also have a more high-level document about managing operations, all that wonderful work about waste and water and chemicals, etc. So there's a lot of advice and guidance out there to help our zoos and aquariums be more sustainable and continue to improve. We're always looking to share these wonderful stories, so if you're doing something amazing on sustainability in your zoo or aquarium, please do get in touch with us and have a chat with me this week, and we can look to promote your work in Zoo Aquaria on our socials as well. And I think that just brings me to my last slide here. And this is where we were 2 years ago when we were in Zagreb at our conservation forum. And this is where I kind of asked you to look around the room. Those of you there, the wonderful icebreaker had to be rolled out with all the beautiful food they gave us last night. Do you think we've managed to increase on these numbers? About the same? Decrease? What do you reckon? I see people putting their fingers up. So yeah, super pleased to say that we have increased our numbers. Yes! Fantastic. More people, more institutions, more countries than we had 2 years ago. And this is about us wanting to grow our community. Perhaps I'd still like to see a few more other organisations to sort of have a maybe 70-30, 60-40 balance, because we recognise that with you is important. So if you're an EASA member and you're working with somebody that's not an EASA member, just invite them along in 2 years' time. If you're not an EASA member in the room today, amazing big welcome. Hopefully you're going to have a good time. You're going to come back in 2 years. You're going to bring some more buddies from other organisations as well. Because we absolutely recognise that we want to work together. And to be successful, to have impact in conservation, it's about working together. And I recognise that we're often able to build trust and do that by seeing each other in fantastic events like this. So chat to each other, talk to each other, seek out that 21%. Also, as an aside, I like to collect data, so I was looking at everybody's icebreaker questions on the Hoover app. And one of the questions was, where's the best place you've been? And Costa Rica came up quite a lot. And I know there's at least 2 delegates here from Costa Rica. So I'm warning you now, you may get a lot of people coming to talk to you and track you down to ask, can I come visit you in Costa Rica? What kind of conservation work is going on out there? But that's just an example of how we can connect, and I encourage you to do that this week. So thank you all for listening, and enjoy a fantastic week here at the EASA Conservation Forum.
Well, it's always very complicated to come after my family.